Welcome to the Dumb Idea Podcast Show with Mike and Alex. We thank you for joining us as we have a couple of beers and a cigar and talk about what's going on in our lives. Grab an adult beverage and a smoke and settle in with us. Please like, subscribe, and comment on each show so we can hear whether you agree or disagree with our take on things. Listen wherever your favorite podcasts are and at www.dumbideapodcast.com. So in the past few episodes, we've kind of talked about how we don't fit into either of the particular parties. We're basically kind of, our political beliefs kind of stay where they are, and the political parties, whether they sway more to the left or more to the right, they kind of move around us because we feel like we're in the middle. And one of the things that we've always said is we always end up voting for the party that's not going to tell us what to think, right? And then, after those episodes, we kind of started just saying, well, if there was a third party, and we know there probably will never be a viable third party, the libertarians have been trying for years, but if there was a third party, what could those positions of that party be? And gather enough steam with voters that they would say, you know what, I'm just not feeling this far left candidate or this far right candidate. What would another candidate's positions need to be where I could have more buy-in? It's not, at this point, it wouldn't be, well, I'm voting against the pro-life person, or I'm voting against the pro-choice person, or I'm voting for the Second Amendment guy or against the Second Amendment guy, and that's pretty much it. Everything else is a wash, and I just hope they don't blow up the country, right? So tonight, we're going to go through some major political topics, overarching topics, and we're going to try and see where a new party would have to be to kind of get our vote, or where would we get excited about a candidate from the middle. I actually saw, we talked about the podcast from Z-Dog MD, my favorite doctor, right? And he was wearing a shirt on his YouTube channel that said alt middle. I was like, yeah, you know what? That sounds right. That sounds about right. Right now, being in the middle is the contrarian view of the day.
Yeah, I think Matthew McConaughey said he was a hardcore moderate or something like that, where he was like, hey, I'm just here and doing my thing. And he's been one of the stars, celebrities that's actually kind of been able to say what he thinks and remain above the fray and not get dragged in or dragged through the mud by one side or the other, or get canceled.
I always feel he says a lot of words and no substance comes out of his mouth. Like, I've listened to him, and he is straight up that dude from, what's that movie? Dazed and Confused.
He's
all right. He is still that guy. Like, everyone loves him because he's just this chill dude. But, like, when he talks, he's like, I want everyone to live. I want everyone to be happy. I want everyone, like, almost that utopian kind of guy.
Right.
Like, he wants people to have their guns and they're pro-choice or whatever, but like he comes out, and I don't think he ever takes an official stand on anything. Like, he would be a great politician.
Yeah,
So, a lot of words come out without taking a stand on anything.
people like him,
Right? People love him. He thinks he's going to run for governor. He's actually thinking about it.
Oh, really?
He's going to run against Greg Abbott.
Oh, wow.
I was shocked at that one.
Wow.
But then that to me is like, why would you run for any political office right now, other than to get rich?
Well, I think politicians in general are narcissists.
That's true.
And people say, oh, Donald Trump was a narcissist. They're all narcissists.
Mm-hmm.
Trump just wasn't polished. So, but they're all very much, who would do it? Who would put themselves through that if they didn't at least have some narcissistic qualities to their personality?
As much as I hate to say it, I at least think he came at it from a good place. I think he wanted to help regular folks achieve whatever they wanted to achieve. And he thought the government got in the way.
Yeah. What's funny, because when he was elected, I absolutely hated him. Mm-hmm. I couldn't stand him. And I'll never forget when I went in 2016 and getting back to the voting for the person you hate the least. I pulled the lever for Hillary because I couldn't. I was like, I can't vote for this guy. He's a clown. And I remember watching him in The Apprentice and this and that. And so my thought process, well, at least Hillary knows what the government does. And I think Trump didn't for a lot of I kind of think that he thought he would tell people what to do and they would do it, and didn't really understand that, no, you're just a executive branch, just a cog in a wheel, man. Now we can get into how much power the legislature has ceded to the executive branch through omnibus spending bills and some of these other executive orders and that they take, and the legislature just kind of lets them do it. But there's that, whether that check and that balance has eroded. But yeah, I couldn't stand him. I absolutely couldn't stand him. And that persisted pretty good up until 2020, when I had my red pill moment, if you would. And like you said before, I don't think it had anything to do with me really moving. I think I just kind of watched everything, like you think the pier that sticks out into the water. Well, sometimes the legs of the pier look long and short. Well, they still stay the same length. It's just the tide rising around it. And that's kind of how I look at myself. Like I'm steady. Right. But, for me, and when I kind of made the switch over, my wife she's like, you hate him. How could you? Because I would just sit there and be like, look at this guy, but and that's kind of how I was raised too. I was raised, my mother was a liberal. I wouldn't say liberal. I mean, she subscribed to Mother Jones. She was like a socialist. My dad was he grew up in Pittsburgh, Democrat, union type Democrat. Mm-hmm. They studied at the Sorbonne in the 70s, so we're talking some left bank type people. But then for me to go and make that switch, kind of knocked some people for really you? So
I for me, I never voted for Trump. Never. Because personally, I think the guy is a buffoon.
Yeah.
Buffoon is my preferred term for him. I thought a lot of his policies were actually quite good.
Yeah.
But with politics, you expect a certain amount of decorum. Look, politicians are going to screw you.
Yeah.
But they do it with decorum. They do it with the smile on their face, and they put a lot of fancy words together to make you think they're doing something good for you. I kind of wish that someone with his policies had the decorum. I could have voted for that. Instead, when it came time to pull the lever, I voted for Gary Johnson and then Joe Jorgensen.
Yeah.
Now here, as much as I'm not a total fan of the Libertarian Party, but a lot of what they espouse, I'm more in line with. Now, I'm not a no government completely out of the way type of guy. I feel like government done right is good.
Right.
Government in its current form is crap because the people in charge of it are in it to get paid. Mm-hmm. And actually, there was reporting done recently, and also about I think 2 or 3 years ago, Kelly Loeffler and I think it was Richard Blumenthal. It was right before COVID. They got the COVID briefing. Came out of the briefing and said everything's okay. Mm-hmm. Nothing to see here. They then went on to sell stock and buy stock in certain companies that were going to do bad when the economy tanked. Yeah. And do well when the medical companies did well. Mm-hmm. The problem is, though,
Like selling my Royal Caribbean, I'm going to buy some Novavax.
correct, and that's what happened.
So blatant.
But because they all know the way around the rules, they were found to have no improprieties.
Yeah.
And lastly, the one that just came out last week was that Nancy Pelosi's husband made about $5 million on a stock transaction from that resulted in legislation that she helped pass.
Mm-hmm.
And because she didn't make the trades, there was found to be no impropriety there. Because husbands and wives don't talk at night.
No.
Right? So, while specifically did any wrongdoing happen? No. But one can infer that it did.
There was smoke.
Yes.
There's some fire.
And we're not talking about small amounts of money. We're talking like that was $5 million.
Like he didn't jump on Robinhood and move some penny stocks around.
And I'm not trying to pick on her because I think they all do it.
No, I would.
There has not been one politician that's gone into the chambers of Congress and came out poorer than they went in.
Right.
None. And it isn't because they got paid $170,000 or $155,000 a year from their Congress salary. Mm-hmm. Heck no.
Yeah.
Your net value doesn't go up $1 million in 3 years. Like net value, not just assets.
Right.
Net value doesn't go up over $1 million in 3 years on $150,000 salary. Doesn't happen that way.
Let me know what you're putting that money into.
Right. Especially when you're paying rent in DC and you still own a home in your home district. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't, it's impossible.
So I think one of the things is most of these people are coming from some means anyway. So there's that.
Some of them are.
And then some aren't. But Maxine Waters went into Congress with like nothing. Mm-hmm. And now is a millionaire. And I'm not just picking on her, but it happens all over the place.
Well, it's not just them that get rich.
Yeah.
It's the sons, the daughters, the husbands, the wives, the cousins, the parents, the grandchildren.
Yeah.
They
like what does Hunter Biden produce?
Nothing, but he gets on corporate boards because of his dad. He negotiates deals because of his dad. Mm-hmm. And look, I don't know the full extent to where money is going within that family, and I really don't care. I guess my point with that is that I don't think that the people in the seat of Congress are necessarily making the best decisions for the people of the United States of whom they're supposed to represent. They're in it for themselves. They have been. And they've been doing it too long to this extent. And I feel like, and I've said this all along, I've made this analogy before on this podcast to the mafia. When the mafia ran a neighborhood in New York City or wherever, mostly in New York City, back in the good old days of the mob, or Philadelphia or Newark or wherever they were, the mob family in control of the neighborhood took care of the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Everyone in that neighborhood who wanted a job got a job. Nobody went hungry because you went to the mob boss. You went to the underboss. Mm-hmm. They say, "Hey, look, I'm having trouble putting food on my family's plate. I didn't get any hours down at the docks." And the mob boss would say, "Here, come on down." Because they probably owned a piece of the deli. They gave him a couple steaks, maybe gave him a little bit of grocery money, whatever. And then 2 days later, all of a sudden they had a job down at the docks.
Yeah.
They got taken care of. Like, you took care of your own. Mm-hmm. Well, our own, in this instance, is the United States of America, and the people in power, the mafia, a.k.a. Congress, is not taking care of the neighborhood.
No, they're just looking out for themselves.
Exactly. And the example of that, the proof of that, is the wage gap that's occurred and how much it's increased. The gap between the top 1% and the 99% from the 80s to the 2000s and 2010s grew exponential.
Right.
Right. You got to drop some breadcrumbs. You got to let the people eat a little bit. Mm-hmm. And they just never did that.
Yeah. And even if you look back to the Great Recession, where the CEOs of these companies were like that just royally screwed over.
Getting golden parachutes.
Just
and people's homes lost all the value.
Yeah. And these guys are coming out better than they went in from these severance packages and getting bailed out. The banks they were all bailed out. The taxpayers bailed them all out.
If you want to watch a movie that'll piss you off, watch Too Big to Fail. Mm-hmm. It was written by Aaron Ross Sorkin, and a lot of people now know him from CNBC. But he wrote that book, Too Big to Fail, and they made it into a movie. Mm-hmm. It'll piss you right off. And then watch another movie called The Laundromat. Mm-hmm. Now, The Laundromat is on Netflix, and it explained how super rich people put their money in foreign countries and hide their assets, which, oh, by the way, I believe some papers came out. I forgot what they called them this last week, detailing, I think it was 300 people where they were hiding their money. And they were named. Like, someone hacked some system and found out, like, people were hiding money in shell companies in Panama, the Seychelles. Like, this is legit stuff. And this is where people are putting their money to avoid taxes. So, like, you're making billions.
Right.
Or let's just say you're making hundreds of millions. I know it's going to hurt if you're making $100 million to put $50 million back into taxes. I get it. 50% tax rate's rough. Well, we got a 30-something% tax rate on those people. Mm-hmm. You're telling me in $100 million, if you got to give up 35 of it,
you're going to be destitute.
Right. Right. I mean, it's that old thing that Chris Rock used to say. If I make $20 million and she takes 10, I'm not starving. I'm not moving back in with my mom.
Right.
But if I make 30,000 and she's taking 15, I got to move back in my mama's basement.
Yeah.
Like, it was a perfect example. Like,
and that's one of the places where I definitely fall more left, because you have the ideas of flat taxes get floated around, and I think it was when Ted Cruz was running in the primary against Trump. He said his tax return was going to be the size of a postcard, and you just give 10% or whatever. And it's okay. That sounds real simple. I just give 10% or whatever the rate is back. But the thing is, when you make 10% of your $20,000 a year job is a much bigger dent than 10% of your $20 million a year job.
Right.
Or whatever income it is. And so the United States currently has one of the most progressive tax. Right.
The more you make, the more you pay, percentage wise. The problem is, though, so let's say you're making $20,000 and you're only paying 10%, lowest tax rate we got. So you pay $2,000 of your 20.
Yeah.
Okay. You're doing okay. You're still pulling in your 18. The guy at the top, though, let's say he makes $100 million.
Yeah.
He's supposed to pay 36%, right? So he should be paying $36 million a year in income tax, right? Problem is, though, he's hiding 50 of that 100 in another country.
Right.
So now he's only paying 36% on 50.
Right.
He's paying half the taxes that he should. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, just be straight up.
Yeah.
Now, I get it. It hurts. It hurts. That's a lot of money. But again, though, if you got to pay $36 million in taxes versus 17 or 18, that extra 17 or 18 mil when you make 100 mil, you're not going broke.
No,
you're not.
You're not selling the private jet.
And never mind, most of those guys aren't paying the regular income tax.
Yeah.
A lot of us do capital gains. Capital gains tax is 15%. Mm-hmm. You're telling me that on these hundreds of millions or millions of dollars that you're making, you can't pay 15% without trying to hide a little bit?
Right.
You scumbag.
Yep.
No, listen, you're right. Normally, I am to the right. Mm-hmm. Like, I think someone who started a business from scratch gets revenue of $400,000. I don't want them taxed at 36%. That's crazy.
Correct. Yep.
You're hurting a small business owner at that point.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about at least me, I'm not. I'm not talking about the guy $400,000, $500,000. I think if you got a mil or above, which is going to be the 0.5%.
Yeah.
Because I think if you make over 200,000, you're in the 1% supposedly.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's not that big of a number.
Yeah.
But if you just got rid of, this is what they talk about, tax loopholes. If you got rid of these loopholes and these shell companies and all this other garbage, you'd bring in enough money to cover the gaps.
Yeah. And then there's other accounting tricks they use to hide profits and hide income. And the thing is, I think what people forget is that, so they'll say, oh, well, you know, one of the lines was, you know, that Warren Buffett's secretary paid more in taxes than Warren Buffett did. And I can't see that, you know.
I think
but,
she might have paid a greater percentage, I think is what he meant.
But the thing is, I think people look at guys like Bezos and, you know, these billionaires that have all this money, and they think, oh, well, he makes $250 billion a year. No, he doesn't.
No.
His assets are 200, but you already paid tax on that money.
Right. Well, he doesn't.
Yeah. So
he doesn't pay tax until he sells that stock.
Right. No,
and,
that's what I mean.
Realizes the gain. He doesn't, and that's why all these CEOs take stock options.
Yeah.
Because rather than taking an annual salary, what they can do is, so if they took an annual salary on a $36 million annual pay, which is what some of these CEOs make, like Jamie Dimon and all these other guys, whatever, you got to pay the 36% tax rate. Or now it might even be 20, whatever they lowered it down to, but they're going to raise it back up. But anyway, you got to pay 36, right? But if I get it as stock options,
you don't have to pay anything until you sell it.
Right. But even when I sell it, I'm only paying 15%.
Correct. Because you haven't realized the gain.
Right. I just halved my tax bill.
Yeah.
So they give my salary as stock. I can then turn around and sell that stock, and I realize, and I take that gain. I'm only paying 15% on that capital gains. Mm-hmm. Whereas if they hand it to me as a salary, I now have to pay 36%.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can lower my tax rate by 60% by getting stock instead of salary.
Yeah.
And that's what they all do. So, I mean, they do sell a little bit, and they have to report what they sell. But
yeah.
But
now,
again,
dividends, does that count the same as capital gains?
Capital gains.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I think people get kind of misled because they think that someone like Bezos makes $250 billion a year, when that's not the case. With his assets of the parts of Amazon that he owns, the stocks, all the airplanes, the property, all that stuff. Yeah, that's his net worth.
Right.
But if you wanted to add up my net worth, I don't get paid the value of my house every year.
Right.
You know, I get paid my salary every year. Now, the equity I have in my house, yes, that's an asset, but I already paid tax on that.
Right.
And that's where there's a little bit of disingenuous. Now, certainly that doesn't cover for the accounting tricks. And the thing is, like, these dudes, if you look at these big donors, they're donating money to both sides.
Some of them are. Some of them are not. Like, I think the biggest donors don't.
But if you look at, like, Walmart donates money to both sides.
Right. And the funny part is they do it through the children of the trust.
Yeah.
They're doing the donations.
Yeah.
Walmart itself isn't really doing much.
But they're hedging their bet.
Right.
Because if one wins, and then hey, maybe I didn't give you this guy as much as I gave that guy, but I still gave you something. You still got to look out for me.
But you've got others though, like Soros gives solely to Democrats. Yeah. Peter Thiel solely to Republicans.
The Koch brothers
solely to Republicans. I mean, there's the heavy hitters on both sides.
Yeah.
Are only giving to one side. And I always thought of this, though. I'm like, is that really worth it? Imagine the millions of dollars these huge PACs take in from these guys. And we're talking like a billion a year here, $1 billion a year there, 50 million here, 30 million there. And it sounds like large numbers to us, but to them it's peanuts.
That's nothing.
Imagine what you could do with that money if you created like an entrepreneurship program somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, imagine how many small businesses and jobs you could create with that 30 mil. Mm-hmm. It would be astronomical. Like, if you really wanted to help this country, it wouldn't be through the politics.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, if I give money through politics, it'll come back to me on the back end through government contracts.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these guys are getting money through government contracts, right? So it's all that pay-to-play system. Now, I think a lot of people know, like a lot of people, especially with the internet, I know people bash the internet and what it is, but a lot of people through the internet and the dissemination of information, a lot of people are aware of this. And I think, I mean, me personally, like I said, as long as the mafia is taking care of the neighborhood, I'm okay if they get their cut. I understand what this is.
Right.
But for me, it's like when you stop dropping those breadcrumbs to the neighborhood, That's when I get pissed off. That's when I'm like, look, we all know what this game is, but you were just so greedy. You had to take that. You had to take that little bit extra, and couldn't help out the guy. You couldn't help out the people.
Yeah.
And that's my whole thing. Like, for example, like this stupid infrastructure bill, bipartisan bill, right and left, and one side's going to hold it hostage because they want to get more.
Yeah,
they want more. And but it's for the people, though.
Yeah,
we're doing it for the people. It's social programs. Yeah, someone's going to run these programs, and someone's going to get paid. It's all done in contracts.
Yeah, it's going to be crap.
Yeah,
it's going to be crappy ideas.
You're going to get 5 cents worth on the dollar.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that drives me nuts is when you deal with the money coming in, the more, so you take it from the taxpayer, it goes to the government, and then it ends up then some of it goes back to the states, and then it goes back to this program or that program. And when you look at it, every step of the process that it goes through, a little bit is shaved off of it, or a lot of it shaved off of it, depending on who has to process it. So I'd like to see, so when that money comes down, say as a grant to do some program in a school, and the money left the state, the citizens, went to the federal government, it's going to lose money there. So I'd like to see the dollar-to-dollar comparison. How much is that money worth when it comes back to the program? And if we had skipped all these steps and kept it more of a local control.
So I can give you a good example. There are the particular programs that I know about. Money goes from state to the federal government. Federal government then packages it all together to create a grant program that they then send back out to the states. Now, some of it doesn't come back equally, but let's just say, all in all, each state is supposedly getting an equal share of what they put in, which they're not. But some get $1.25 on the dollar they put in. Some get 88 cents for the dollar they. Let's just say it's even, just for this argument's sake. When the government then makes that grant, the government agency making it is allowed to use 5% of the grant program for management and administrative. So basically the people in the federal government that are there to oversee it, to award it, to keep tabs on the money, the computer systems, keep the lights on, 5% of that award will go to the administration on the federal level. Okay. Now, if it goes to the state by a formula grant, the state can also take 5% for these. So now, right off the bat, you're getting 90 cents on your dollar. Because 5% is going to the federal government, 5% is going to the state.
Yeah.
Just to manage it, just for management. And then let's say it goes down from the states to the localities. The localities get another 5%. So now you're getting 85 cents on your dollar that you're giving in. Well, then if you've got contractors or whatever, whoever's got to now manage these awards that go out from the locality, they're the ones making the official award to go out to get whatever product you were supposed to get, roads, whatever.
Yeah.
All right. So let's say it's a roads program. All right. So you're already 85 cents in the dollar. Well, that road company is allowed to take a certain percentage. Some allow a percentage for overhead. Some call it an administrative fee, whatever it is. But you could be losing another. I mean, shoot, when it comes to like research grants, you could be losing 65% of that.
Wow.
Like I know with like Johns Hopkins, if it's an on-site facility, meaning an on-site at Hopkins, not overseas, 65% goes straight to Hopkins as administrative.
Wow.
65%. So, all right. So I don't know what 65% of 85 cents is, but let's just let's say we're down to 35 cents.
Yeah.
You're now getting the taxpayer from the point where it went from the taxpayer to the federal government or for the states, federal, whatever it is, you're now getting 35 cents worth on that dollar given.
Yeah. It just seems like such a waste.
And if people think I'm not like giving factual numbers here, go ahead and check out a Hopkins grant and see what an on-site management administrative fee is. 65%.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, that might not be going through the state. So they might get directly from an AH. So let's just say they get 65%. That means you're still only getting 45%.
Right.
And that's if the federal agency is not taking anything, which is not true. So I'm going to say, at best, the taxpayer gets 40 cents on the dollar from that federal grant.
Yeah. Such a waste.
Yeah.
And
40 cents of actual research.
Yeah.
On the dollar.
Yeah.
That's nuts to me. That's like the worst money management I've ever seen. And these are negotiated rates. So like Hopkins said, "Hey, we want 65%," and someone at the federal government said, "Yeah, you know what? Sounds reasonable."
That's how it was negotiated.
You got to be kidding me.
No, how about 60?
Right? No. I need that 65, or I'm not going to do it. And the funny thing, like some of these, but look, that it's just. So that's some inefficiency for you right there.
And you have inefficiency, then you have waste.
Yeah.
There's
or just fraud.
Yeah.
Just straight up fraud.
Well, if you look at this, all the money that went out for the paycheck, the triple P loans and all this stuff, where people were going out and forming an LLC that day, and then going and essentially, if we're asking for under $1 million, they're just approving it. Just approving it, like no looking into it or anything.
Well, the idea is we want to get this money out quick, so we're gonna approve almost everything, and then we'll go find the fraud later.
Yeah,
like you're kidding me, right?
Right. That's like I'm not gonna lock my doors or secure my house, but when someone breaks in and steals all my stuff, I'll go find it later.
Right.
Like it doesn't. Now, granted, there's not as big of a paper trail with a B&E as there is with tax fraud.
Right.
But
so this point right here, again, we've gotten a lot off topic, but this goes to the point of, for me, when I say I want government to do some things, I want them to do it right.
Yeah.
Not like it's being done right now.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, and that's where I kind of fall away from the libertarian to, from the Tea Partiers, from those types, was they say, oh, government's not good for anything. Government, they, put a man on the moon. Yeah. Like NASA, that was all NASA stuff. There was no private company doing that stuff. Now, there were private companies involved, but that was the sheer will of the federal government. That's how that happened.
The government has the ability to do things the right way.
Yeah.
The government is also bent to the will of corporations or outside interests that want their pound of flesh. Pound of flesh isn't the right word, but they want their cut.
Yeah.
Like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, all those big military industrial complex companies, they spend a lot of money on lobbying. Mm-hmm. It isn't because they don't get anything in return for it.
Right.
If CEOs thought they weren't getting their money's worth out of lobbying Congress, they would stop putting money into it.
Right.
And that's part of the problem. Now, you can't get rid of lobbying altogether because people and companies need a way to go and educate a sitting member of Congress to let them know what's going on in their industry in the world. Because if anybody can grant anything, members of Congress are not. They are so detached from what's going on in reality.
Yeah.
So you need experts to come in and say, hey, look, we're real close to nuclear fission. We need government to step in and push it the extra 10 steps. Or electric cars can be the way of the future, but we need government to step in and incentivize purchases. It's for the good of the people. It's for the good of the country.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's true or not, but that's my point. My point is there should be a mechanism for government to be educated on certain things, and that is done usually by lobbying. Now, are the lobbyists always telling the truth to these people that they're buying? I don't know.
There's a movie. I wish I could think of it.
Thank You for Smoking?
Yes.
Yep. I knew exactly what you're talking about.
The Angels of Death. Is that what they call it?
Yeah. It was what? Alcohol, tobacco, and
firearms.
Yeah.
It was like
ATF.
I love that movie. It was such a good movie.
Yeah, it really is.
And to see it, but and here's the thing with that, like, people say, "Oh, the special interests." I don't want to say I don't have a huge problem with special interest groups, but there are things that people feel strongly about. Some people feel strongly about, about abortion, about guns, about whatever it is. If there's special interests, if that people band together to go and utilize those platforms to then have that influence, like-minded people trying to have that influence. Now, there are some other things where we're like, oh, well, now it's the gun manufacturers in with the NRA. Or it's this group in with the abortion folks, or whoever it is.
Yeah.
But the point of it is, if you feel strongly about the Second Amendment, yeah, you're going to donate money to the NRA because you know the NRA is going to be down there lobbying on your behalf.
Well, and the NRA is going to run ads to scare you into thinking that Joe Biden's coming for your guns.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to ramp up donations because people believe that Joe Biden's going to come and get your guns.
It's going to ramp up gun sales, too.
Heck yeah. and ammo.
Yeah. And then it's going to, and if a Republican comes in, then all the now people get all fired up, and then they start pouring in tons of money to. But the thing is, if you feel strongly about those, like, I feel strongly about the Second Amendment, so if I want to have my voice heard, yeah, I could write a letter to my Democrat senator in Maryland, which is going to go absolutely nowhere. Or I could donate money to the NRA, be an NRA member, and know that at least there's they're lobbying on behalf of my interests. Now, I'm not an NRA member, but if I want, like, that's an avenue that I could take. And it fits across the board with other things. I think what it gets kind of polluted is when you have the manufacturers in and the big money comes in and like, oh, there's all these gun owners and sportsmen that want to protect their Second Amendment rights, but then here's Sig Sauer is also putting money into the NRA, and so is Smith and Wesson, and so are all these big companies because they're trying to protect their interests too. That's where the corruption comes in. So, or the big huge dollar amounts. It's not from little guys like me.
No. They're definitely. There's so much money into politics. Like, even the dollar amounts we just talked about with the Koch brothers or Soros or Sheldon Adelson or whoever they are, the other money from other PACs that nobody's ever heard of, it's crazy money.
Yeah, it's
crazy money. Like, think about this. Even if it was, let's say, $3-4 billion a year, and it's probably way more than that goes into political races. Ads, campaigning, whatever it is. Imagine what that money could do.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it's crazy.
Well, what was it? They spent more money on those Georgia Senate races than any races in history. Like, it was insane the amount of money they spent. That wasn't all Georgians spending that money.
Oh no,
that money was coming from all over the place. And I have a problem with that. Where, so say you have a seat in Tennessee, and they decide that they can flip this seat one way or the other. So they're going to have a bunch of New York money, California money, coming, maybe foreign money, because it's all black. Nobody knows where this stuff comes from.
Right.
Coming in to influence this race. So now all these outside interests dumped a whole ton of money into this campaign, and they flip this seat. That person's not beholden to those constituents.
No.
That person's beholden to all this dark money that came in from all over the place. That person's never going to go back to their seat. When you look at what was it, Alabama, now granted the Republicans ran that, was it Roy Moore?
I don't think they could have run a worse guy.
Right. Like
you literally, you lost a Republican Senate seat to a Democrat in Alabama.
Right.
You must be a turd of a human being.
Yeah.
For that to happen.
Now,
Roy Moore, good riddance to you.
Right. Now, there was a ton of money coming into that race, too.
You know the funny part of that? He barely lost.
Right.
Barely lost.
Yeah.
Wasn't he like texting a teenager?
Yeah, that's at best, that's what he was doing.
Like a pedophile.
Yeah.
Barely lost. First of all, Alabama, what is going on down there where 48% of the voting population is like, yeah, I know he's a pedophile.
He's not a Democrat.
I know he did something. He probably did something improper with some kids. But he ain't Democrat, so I'm voting for him.
Right.
Get the hell out of here. That should have been 80-20.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be 20% of people that are nuts.
Right.
The other 80% of you people should never have voted for Roy Moore. I'm sorry. Even if it was possibly made up about the dude.
Yeah.
You possibly voted for a pedophile.
Right.
And look, I know, like, I've never been one to say that maybe all people shouldn't be able to vote, but maybe all people shouldn't be able to vote. and look, it's not just down there.
Oh,
I'm sure this has happened in other places that it doesn't get as much pub.
At D.C. reelected, a million years ago, reelected Marion Barry.
Marion Barry.
Now, Marion Barry, there was a great documentary on him. He was like did a lot for that. I think it's D.C. Ward 6. Yep. I think that's what he was in. And he did a lot for that community. He was big into the civil rights movement, and prior to getting into politics he was like a righteous dude. Mm-hmm. But then politics kind of corrupted him. And, there was the bitch set me up and all. So then he gets reelected.
Right. But
but maybe Trump was right when he's like, I could shoot someone in Fifth Avenue and people still vote for me.
I just don't understand how, like, some of these cities keep reelecting the same people when they know there's so much corruption going on.
Yeah.
Like the city of Baltimore, I don't understand how they can keep winning.
Yeah. Now this, I do like, so I don't like his politics. Mm-hmm. I disagree with him probably on just about every conceivable issue, but I like Brandon Scott. For whatever reason, I think he's like a fresh face, maybe.
Sure. He's
just not the same warmed over dirt bag that they normally elect.
Right. Well, he might be the first one not to go to jail after he's out of office.
Right.
In the last 3 mayors.
Yeah. And, like I said, I disagree with him on pretty much on everything, but he just, and it's not even the type of thing where, I can sit down and have a beer with that guy.
Right.
It's just, he seems like he's in it for the right reason. Now, I wouldn't like the result of it, but I don't live in Baltimore, so it doesn't really matter to me.
I mean, one of the bigger problems with Baltimore is the corruption at the city council and at the school. Mm-hmm. The schools there are atrocious.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of factors that go into it, but a lot of the money, I mean, in Baltimore City, per student, it ranks it ranks in the top 5. I don't know if it's
number 1 in the state.
Well, it's number 1 in the state, but I think in the country, it's in the top 5 of money per student spent. Mm-hmm. So, and the money has increased, I think, over the last 20 years. Yeah. Each year over year. At what point can you just say, we can't buy our way out of this program because the more money we put in, the more money they siphon off.
Yeah. Well,
it's not going to kids.
And one of the things Dan Crenshaw made a good analogy about that is it's the puppy dog problem. So everyone likes puppy dogs, right? And everyone likes schools. Everyone likes, well, most people like kids. Some people don't, but most people do. And most people realize that the key to bringing people out of poverty is education. So they say, well, let's give more money to the schools. Let's get more money to the schools. Just like the puppy dog. Everyone likes the puppy dog. Let's take care of the puppy. But eventually, you have to take a step back and realize that this isn't working. And the money we're giving them is not getting the results because there's no accountability on the back end. But everyone likes the schools. And if you don't give money to the schools, then you're a bad guy.
Right.
You're a bad person. Just like if you don't pet the puppy dog, you don't like the puppy, you're a bad person.
Right. If you didn't kiss the baby on the campaign trail, you hate babies.
Right.
How dare you vote someone in that hates babies?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's easy to fall into, but then you have unscrupulous people, these, so much of that money goes to the top. It's not being spent in the classroom.
No,
it's being spent on nonsense.
Right.
In the school, administrators that don't do anything. Mm-hmm. We're talking, solid 6-figure salaries that don't have no interactions with students. They should turn that system on its head, and that money is in the classroom. That money is going to the kids, not just to administrators and politicians and hangers-on and fraud, waste, and abuse and everything else that happens there. So
should they maybe put air conditioning in the schools?
Yeah.
I mean, the governor sent money for that specific reason. Mm-hmm. Still haven't done it. It's 3 years later.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't, like, again, it's the mafia rule. You're telling me Mafia Don and work in that Baltimore City Public Schools, whoever the CEO of that is, the superintendent of Baltimore City Public Schools, You're telling me you couldn't have just taken that money and put air conditioners in schools?
Right.
You had to siphon off that too?
Yeah.
Like, all of this, like, you can't say money's the issue when you're top 5 in the nation, money spent per student, when the money's not going to educate the students anymore. Mm-hmm. It's going to pay your buddies for contracts.
Right.
And everybody's got their hand out.
Yeah, to pay for take-home cars for administrators. Like, what do school administrators need vehicles for?
Well, it's not even that. Food service. Mm-hmm. Who's getting a cut of that?
Yeah.
Who's getting a cut of the maintenance contracts? Mm-hmm. Who's getting a cut of the lawn contract?
Yep.
Everyone's got their hand out, and everyone's marking the stuff up 25, 30%. They're already choosing who the winner is. Mm-hmm. Like, someone could probably go in, undercut a bid by 15, 20%, and they're going to say, well, because of past good stewardship, we're going to award it to these guys.
Yeah, well, then there's some of these...
Because there are those clauses.
And then some of these municipalities, some of these government entities, whether it's, state, local, they have things built in to... And the design of it's well-intentioned, like a lot of these things are. It's well-intentioned. Like, we want to support, say, Baltimore City businesses. And I don't know for a fact, but I'm sure they have something because, different areas have this. So in order to support these Baltimore City-based businesses, they'll say, okay, we'll pay more to have it. And they know what the percentage is.
Right.
So those businesses know. They know what everyone else is going to charge. They know what an air conditioner costs. So they're going to charge 12% more. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to get it because they're Baltimore City-based business.
Right. And they know they're coming in within that 12% margin.
And then they'll go subcontract that out.
Right.
To someone that'll do it for 80% of what the actual cost is. So now they're making 32% to do nothing.
Right.
So but that's 32% that could go
to the
actual
to pay teachers.
Yeah.
To pay for better food in the schools.
Yeah.
Or to pay for a community program to make sure kids that don't have 2 parents in the home get to school.
Yeah.
They could do more community outreach programs with that money. Like, look, I get it. You got to spend more in some of these cities because the situation is tougher. I get that. I completely do. But when that extra money isn't being spent to better the school system and it's being spent to pay out people because they're your third cousin, or they're your mother's friend's kid, who like, if people don't think that kind of stuff goes on, you're not paying attention,
or you're just completely naive,
right?
And the thing is, this shouldn't be, and it's not a left-right issue. I don't think anyone. I think I could go to the most lefty wingnut person I know, and I think we both kind of have in mind who I'm talking about. But I could go to that person and I can say, hey, this program that exists, whatever it is, cheese research for the blind, they're wasting millions of dollars on it when actually none of the money is going to cheese research for the blind. Oh, that's terrible. And then I can go to the most right-wing wacko wingnut person I know too, and let's put that person in our head, and say the same thing, and they'll say, yeah, that's a bad idea. So that's where the extreme left or right would agree on something.
See, I disagree with you there. I think the person on the left would say, well, we just need to put more money into it. And then and the people there will just put the money where it should be. They'll do the right thing. And I think the people on the right say, I'm not putting another dime in there. In fact, take the money away until
take it all away
until they figure out how to manage money right.
Yeah, but I think my point is that no one on either side wants to see just absolute waste and abuse of.
The problem is the person on the left doesn't think that's happening.
Right.
The person
on the right thinks it's all happening.
It's all happening.
Yeah.
In fact, they think it's happening at every school, even the ones that perform well. Oh, well, they could probably do it cheaper. Really, buddy? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Yeah. The teachers are overpaid, right? Don't get me started on teacher pay.
Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of this money that goes into Baltimore City that's going for these contracts and everything, if they would pay more for the teachers in those schools, then they wouldn't have the turnover. They'd probably get teachers that were more invested in the kids a little bit.
Yeah.
Not that I'm blaming them, but everyone knows if you pay, sometimes when you pay more, you get a little bit more out of it, of an individual.
Yeah.
And especially for a teacher's going to go to school, she knows she's going to get crap from the misbehaving students. Mm-hmm. An administration's not going to back her up.
Right.
She's probably going to have to pay for all her school supplies because she actually gives a crap out of her own pocket in a school like that.
Yeah.
Whereas, after a year or two, she goes out to the suburbs. The PTO raises $30,000 a year. She gets $250 from the PTA to pay for supplies for her school, for her classroom.
Yeah.
Or if she needs anything, she just asks the PTA. They'll put out a blast email, say, "Hey, look, our teachers need X, Y, and Z," and next day they're all there.
Yeah.
And never mind the fact that these counties generally pay salaries a little bit better, benefits maybe a little bit better. So why stay?
Or just the facilities in which you work might be better.
Right. You don't feel like you're going to get stabbed.
Yeah.
When you go to work, right? And look, might get flamed for saying that, but some of these schools are not exactly Disney World when you walk in. They're not great.
Yeah.
They can be dangerous places.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm a teacher, am I going to choose that to be my workplace?
Right.
Or am I going to go choose to get paid more the next county over
and not
have to deal with any of that?
Right. And but then I feel bad for the families that have to send their kids to these schools, which kind of brings you to a school choice question. And is that something where they're paying for a service? Now, are people that have incomes of zero paying taxes? No, but there's money going to that school allotted for the education of that student that's not being used effectively. So then, should that kid be able to? Parents say, no, you know what? We want to send this kid to a different school.
Yeah, and I mean, look, going with the tax thing, I don't think people from other parts of the state that are paying into that city. And don't remember, generally with cities, you're supposed to be able to fund education through business taxes, through the visitors and the tourism and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And supposedly the casinos, that was supposed to go to these schools too. I think if people saw that the city of Baltimore was paying in the top 5 per student, but they were getting a good education, I don't think school choice would even be an issue anymore.
Yeah.
But the fact is, you're paying in the top 5 per student in the country, and you're getting crap results. Mm-hmm. The report that came out, what, 60% of the kids were getting passed?
Oh yeah.
Through the system.
Yeah.
And not one had a passing grade.
Yeah. None of them could read.
Couldn't read.
Yeah.
And got they literally didn't even have passing grades.
Right.
But the system pushed them through anyway, so they still got federal dollars because they could say, graduation rate.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think if the money was being put into those schools and the schools were performing, well, okay, we're getting our money's worth. We get it costs more because it's a city. You need more buildings, you need some you need more school administrators because you got more schools.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's not the case. You're paying that much money and you're getting zero. You're not even getting kids that can read.
And the thing is, in some of these cities and counties that are like this, it's just been going on for generations and years and years and years, and people keep asking for, why is this happening? Let's throw more money, and it's not working.
And what's the common denominator?
Yeah,
who you vote for.
Right.
How about Trump went into some of those Democrat areas, and he literally said, "What have you got to lose?"
Yeah.
Yeah, and he actually got votes with that.
Yeah.
Now, are you going to get a majority of votes with that?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not.
Right.
Right.
It's like if I keep going to the dry cleaner and they screw my stuff up every single time and I keep going back, well, pick a different dry cleaner.
Right.
Go to a different dry cleaner. Now, can the parents pull their kids out of those schools that easily? No, but they can vote for different people.
Right. That's your say.
Yeah.
As a parent, you want better schools, if the schools you haven't been run well for 30 years plus,
Yeah.
your recourse is the Board of Education members that you vote for, your city council people that you vote for, and the mayor that you vote for.
Fire them.
Fire them. That's how you get change.
Yeah.
Now, because the problem is if you don't, and the state takes over your schools, and the state is run by a Republican who favors school choice, then you might end up getting school vouchers. Now, the problem with that system is, and that's a whole nother ball of wax, but the problem with that is once you put that system in place, you then doom the public school system to being crap, because you're going to take the resources away from those schools that were already bad to begin with, and they're going to go to these other schools
that are already good.
Now, granted, some of these kids are going to go there, but so what happens is the ones that actually want to learn, the parents that are already involved, basically you're taking the top portion of the top 20% of the students, they're the ones that are going to go.
Yeah.
And the bottom 80% who would have the parents who don't give a crap are going to let their kids continue to go to the school that gets now getting even less funding, worse teachers, and worse administration.
Yeah.
Like, I think the study was done in Detroit about that, and that's exactly what happened. Certain schools thrived, and the other public schools went to crap.
Yeah.
So that's a downward spiral that no one ever talks about with school choice and school vouchers. No one ever talks about that.
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of the school voucher thing, and also say you want to send your kid to a private school, the school voucher is not going to cover that.
Well, some of them do.
Yeah,
some of them will. Like it depends on where it is and how much the private school is, but some of the private schools will take the voucher,
and
because some of those private schools, they're giving out scholarships anyway for some of these. So, okay, look, if I could take in 10 extra kids and I'm getting government money, okay.
Yeah.
It's actually more profitable for me to do that than it is to just give out these 10 free grants or scholarships.
Right.
I'll take 10 kids in and take the government money. It's more than I was getting before.
Yeah.
And again, though, the problem is once you start that, you erode the public school system in that area, and within 5 to 10 years,
it's absolutely
it's done. It's decimated.
Yeah.
And now you're not going to serve. You're going to divide the community even further, because the kids are going to get hurt worse than the poorest kids.
Yeah.
Because it's the kids that the parents aren't really giving a crap, don't know enough where to get the voucher, or even that they think their kid needs a voucher. They're just going to send the kid to the neighborhood school that they went to.
As long as the kid's not bugging them for 7 hours a day, they're happy with it.
Right. Or the parents at work working 3 jobs.
Yep.
And the kid's probably taking care of 2 or 3 siblings, can barely get to school on time. Unless the kid's going to fill out the paperwork himself or herself. And mom and dad don't have time for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never been a big proponent of it. And one of the programs I had seen, I want to say it was when I was in Pennsylvania, they had floated that, and each kid was going to get like $2,500 to go to the. I'm like, where can you go for $2,500? Nowhere. Now, you might be one of those kids that get those scholarships, but if that school has room for 10 and there's 200, then okay. Where are you going?
And most times those private schools, they're giving them to athletes.
Yeah.
They're not giving them to, the straight A science student. Now, some might, but for the most part,
or
it's
the
for
average
athletes.
kid that could do better, or maybe not even the average kid, maybe the kid that needs extra help, but just that would probably benefit them. He's not getting it.
Or even, what if it's like that C or D student that goes to a school, 10 of the 20 kids are just causing issues in the class, right? So the teacher's got to pay attention to those 10 to 20 kids just to get the room quiet so that she can probably finally teach a lesson.
Yeah.
The other 10 kids in there barely get taught the lesson. So when they take the test, they're getting C's or D's, right? Just because they weren't taught it. What happens? What if you take those 10 kids and you put them in a private school?
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee those C's and D's become A's and B's.
Yep.
Just because those are the kids that want to learn. They're there. They're trying to learn. But the teacher can only do so much.
Yeah.
When the other half of the class is acting like fools.
Yeah. Yeah. When they're dealing with behavioral issues and all kinds
Sure,
of other things. So, yeah.
I mean, the funny part is we started off this podcast with, hey, we're going to state our political positions. And we didn't really, we kind of weaved our way in through some of that stuff.
I think we've got somewhat of an idea of where we stand, but we're going to have to definitely talk about it a little bit more.
Well, we'll have to do part 2 of this. So the next episode, we will get straight into our political views and beliefs, and we'll be quite specific on climate and energy, healthcare, budget and finance, abortion, guns, Second Amendment, education, regulation, and food. We'll get into those on the next one. So if you want to hear more, tune in next week, and we will get into that. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, rate us on the podcast platforms. We appreciate you being here with us, and we will see you next time.